Good morning, guys. If it is, it's not a good morning, really, is it? It's a pretty dreadful morning. It's Monday morning. It's Monday, the 15th of September. It is another pretty shitty morning. I was trying to start off, though, a bit of a personal thing this morning before we start talking all things Rangers. We start talking about some of those dreadful stats you can see on the screen. We start talking about some of what's going on at this club and trying to make some sense of it. And obviously, your view in the live chat really important. It's got some good comments already there. We'll touch on those in a moment as well. But first of all, I just want to say huge happy birthday to my daughter. My youngest daughter is 15 today. Laura is my daughter Laura. She's 15. Happy birthday, Laura. I'm so proud of you. You are amazing. Love you to bits. Hope you have a great day. Morning, John. Morning, Professional Cynic. Morning, James. Morning, Dem. Morning, Norbert. We've got a fair few comments already. Some comments already in. Dem says, Roll, Rosa, Nunez, Dyche, all three, no excuses. This point by Dem is a brilliant point, and I'm glad he made this point. He says, managers do have to get time. However, time is bought through progress. I agree 1,000,000% with that one. That is the way you get time. People say, oh, you can't keep sacking managers. Well, you can when there's no progress there. And my argument has always been around the whole Russell Martin situation, that if you could see progress there, even if we weren't winning games, you would be inclined to give him a little bit more time. But he isn't getting that time because he is so bad at his job. We've got James Cliff says, Stuart, Thelwell, Martin and Tav all need to go now. I love this comment as well from Dem. Good point. Would love the full list of people who were interviewed. Me too. I would love to see who was interviewed, to see how this man was allegedly the outstanding candidate. Definitely not. James says, Tav is also a big part of what is wrong with this team. He's a cancer eating this club and killing it, serial loser. I got to say, I agree. I think Tav is a massive issue, a massive part of the problem at this football club. Huge part of the problem at this football club. Thank you, John. Not Brett May says he should be sacked. I agree. Good morning, John. How you doing, buddy? Right, look, I mean, we're coming off what has been a dreadful weekend. I mean, a genuinely dreadful weekend. A league table that looks genuinely depressing. Celtic sit top, Hearts sit second, Hibs sit third, St Mirren fourth, and you know what? You kind of sit here, don't you? And you look at that league table, and you're a little bit, what's going on? What is going on? You know, how is that possible? How is that even possible? The Rangers aren't even top six. You know, your eyes kind of can't believe it. And I think what's kind of a little bit even more shocking is you look at the teams above Rangers. Yes, okay, someone on the same number of points as us, but you look at the teams above us at the moment. Livingston, Kilmarnock and Falkirk, all above Rangers. If I'd said to you all, guys, at the start of the season, come the fifth game in, Falkirk, Kilmarnock and Livy will all be above us in the table, you'd have thought I was a madman. You'd have thought I was a lunatic. You really would have done. You'd have thought I was an absolute loon bag and just something's gone wrong with me and something is very badly wrong with me. But no, that's true. I mean, you look at that. We're sitting 10th place. Dundee, no surprise, Dundee are down there. Don't rate Stephen Presley in the slightest. Aberdeen have had a dreadful start to the season as well. Jimmy Thielen's job under risk as well at Aberdeen at this moment in time. But that league table does not sit pretty at all. And I think that the most telling factor is, guys, if you look at that, we're 3 points off bottom, but we are in total 9 points off top. We're actually closer to the bottom of the league than the top of the league. And for any Rangers team, that is absolutely disgusting to be in that position. Alexander Cameron, good morning, says Nuno Jose got to say Nuno wasn't doing bad at Nottingham Forest. I agree. Nuno Espirito Santo, I think, will be a very good manager. He did well at Wolves. And they've been a disaster since he left. He did well at Forest. I think he was unfairly treated by Marinakis. I've got to be careful what I say about Marinakis. He is a very scary dude. Once you've lost trust the dressing room, it's game over, says Daniel. I got to say, I agree with that. Celtic go after winners like Howe, Ange and Rodgers. We go after Russell Martin. Baffling. I've got to say, that's a brilliant... Dem, you're making some brilliant points, mate. You should be on the podcast. I just wonder who they were interviewing if Martin was the standout candidate. You know, as Dem said, I'd love to see that. And as I think Thierry and someone else make the point here, not Brett May says, we are becoming the Manchester United of the SPL, and I agree 100%. Really do agree on that one. Celtic are bang average, and they're there to be beaten. Daniel, I've got to say, that Celtic, I didn't watch the Celtic game yesterday. I don't watch Celtic. The only time I ever watch Celtic is when they play us. But I've got to say, I agree. They are absolutely dreadful at the moment. They are bang average, and they are... I honestly, do you know what? If Hearts can keep up the form they're in at the moment, I actually think Hearts have got a chance to win the league this season, and that's a completely loopy take to have. But Celtic are really bad. Celtic are really bad this season, and what's really frustrating is that, you know what? If we actually had a decent squad, a decent manager, I think we win the league this season. I think if Steven Gerrard's your manager, if Nuno Espirito Santo is your manager, if Danny Röhl is your manager, if Marco Rose is your manager, if any of those guys, Kevin Muscat is your manager, I think we win the league. I genuinely think we win the league if any of them are in charge. But hey, we've got Russell Martin for now. We're stuck with him. We'll look at some stats and some facts in a moment. But look, it's sad, isn't it? Stephen Armstrong says Stewart, Thelwell, and Martin must all go. There is a poll currently running. Poll 43 votes so far. Does Patrick Stewart, Rangers CEO, need to be sacked? 81% say yes, 19% say no. If you're voting no and you're not a Celtic fan, let me know why you are voting no. Personally, cannot stand Patrick Stewart. Who he reminds me of? He reminds me of one of the Ferengi from Star Trek. I don't know if any of you have seen if any of you are Star Trek fans. I think there's an alarming resemblance between him and Patrick Stewart. Is that Patrick Stewart or is that a Ferengi from Star Trek? I think there's a very big similarity. That Patrick Stewart from Star Trek, I'm telling you now, man. That's Patrick Stewart. I'd like to see our Kevin Thelwell packed up or sacked immediately. He says, go guts, me too. Nuno to take over for me, says Graham Brown. I mean, I've read some... I think, over the last few days, I've seen some really interesting bits and pieces. And I know social media is not a great place, and you've got to be careful, and you've got to fact check what you see on social media. But I've got to say, I've seen some fascinating stuff today and the last couple of days about Russell Martin. I mean, this was the fascinating situation that I actually saw this morning. Was these stats. Juicy Bear Gaming, welcome. Says Celtic may be bang average, but they're top of the league and defensively strong. We can see way too many goals. Good point. Patrick Stewart, not as good looking. Funny. I voted no. We need consistency and continuity in these positions. Dem, I disagree on that one. I think we need the right people in those positions. And I think Thelwell... And I'm going to get on to Kevin Thelwell and talk a little bit about Kevin Thelwell in a short while as to why I don't think he's the right man for the job. Irfan Hussein says, Kavanaugh needs to get his finger out, show some ambition. I'll go off the job to Jose or Nuno. I've got to say Nuno would be a great person. For me, David Greer says, like to see Gerrard back. Good point. Ross Ferguson, thank you very much for the happy birthday wish for my daughter. Right, look, some stats that I saw this morning. Rangers and Southampton, these are from. We know that Russell Martin's stats per se across his whole managerial career are poor. And we've talked enough about his 39%. We've talked about Harry. That's funny, mate. We've talked about. Yeah, but look, Rangers and Southampton league, one win in his last 21 in all in the league. So across the Premier League and the Scottish Premier League, in the last 21 games that Russell Martin has managed as Southampton manager and as Rangers manager, he has won one game in that time. 4.7%. Disgusting. Thank you, Irfan. All competitions, that's obviously League, Cups, Europe, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, all those competitions. He's won 15 in 50. That's 30% of his games he has won in all competitions. 30%. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that is shocking. That is absolutely 110% shocking. 4.7% win ratio in league football. 30% win ratio in all competitions. Yet we're told by the wisdom that is Kevin Thelwell, the wisdom that is Patrick Stewart, the wisdom that is, these guys in charge of our football club, that this man was the outstanding candidate for the job, that he was the outstanding player, outstanding head coach for the job. Guys, I don't see it. I genuinely don't see it. And I would love, I'd love to speak to and ask Patrick Stewart or Kevin Thelwell or Dan Purdy. How? Present all these statistics and facts. Facts. These are facts. These are on paper. Look, you can have an opinion about Russell Martin as a man. You can have an opinion about Russell Martin as a person. You can have an opinion about Russell Martin as a coach. And that's your opinion. What you think of him is your opinion. But these are cold, hard stats, which are facts. They're indisputable because they happened. And there's evidence that they happened. And the stats clearly point to the fact that this man is not very good at his job. 1 win in 21 league games, in the last 21 league games, 4.7%. All competitions, 30% win ratio. Overall career win ratio, 39%, which is 3% worse than Barry. And I'm not a Barry Ferguson for manager supporter, but we were told that Barry wasn't good enough to be manager, that Barry couldn't be Rangers manager, that he just wasn't up to it as manager. Yet his win ratio is actually 3% better than Russell Martin's. People sniffed at Danny Rule as manager, at Marco Rosa as manager, all who had better win percentages, facts, than Russell Martin. So please explain those to me, because I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand how, when you look at the stats, the facts, you can argue with it. Don't get it. Don't get it. Daniel Frew says, Patrick Stewart is an Aberdeen fan. He doesn't understand the hurt us fans are going through. Thelwell needs to go too. I agree. Martin must have been rubbing Patrick's ears. If you know, you know. That's in relation to the Ferengi joke, guys. If you don't know what that's on about, Google it. It's funny. Gorgut says, we laughed at Celtic signing Iheanacho. Now look at him. Obviously, he scores the winner the other day. Good point there. What else have we got here? I didn't laugh at Kelechi. He's a great signing for them. I agree. Is Molly Weir still around? She'd be better than Russell Martin. I agree. He had 7 interviews, for fuck's sake. Rat Trick Stewart. Thelwell said Martin is one of the best managers, head coaches he's ever worked with. If that's not a sackable statement, I don't know what is. Guys, all I'm going to say on that is, if you look at who Everton had as their managers and as their during Thelwell's time there, it ain't great, mate. It ain't great. They wouldn't be finishing 4th, 5th off bottom if they'd had good managers and good recruitment. Is all I'm saying on that one. Kelechi is a player signed from England, shows there's value to be had there, says Dem. I agree. David Greer says Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell and Russell Martin out. I agree with that one. Peter Van Gander, another new name, and lovely to see some great new names in the live chat, says Russell Martin needs to be sacked. This is not the Rangers team I used to know. Poor decisions on the manager as usual. Sack him now. I agree with that one. Alexander Cameron, Barry would do better than this. I agree, Alex. Of course he would. To be fair, win percentages aren't fair. Barry has a better win percentage than Moyes and Iraola. Yeah, I think it's more those stats, though, of how many things and how many goals his team ship as well, Dem. I mean, his overall career goal record is +5 across a career, which is poor. Was at Middlesbrough last season. It's a lack of trust and feeling, plus it's the fans' fault too, according to RM. Yeah, I mean, look, we can talk about Russell Martin now and what he says and what he blames for the results. Now, look, I've criticised people in the past, and I will always call out people if I think they're not doing a very good job or they're being a bit false or whatever. But I want to give massive credit to Stevie Clifford and to David Edgar the other day, who really went after the manager and really, yes, I have not Brett May. I've done a video on it. There was a video out on what Ali said. It came out earlier today. Check it out. But yeah, look, I talked a little bit about what had gone on. I talked a little bit about the whole situation around Russell Martin and what he says and all that. And he just puts out the same stuff all together. Dem says, were you not told Rosa's 65% wasn't good enough for us? I was told that, mate, and I don't get it. Would I bring Barry Bassett back? Says Stephen McGrath. I'd bring him back over Russell Martin. Absolutely, 100%. I don't think he could do any worse than Russell Martin. I genuinely don't. Although one person I do think would do worse than Russell Martin is James Tavernier. I did read something on Twitter that made me nearly throw up when I was out walking the dog last night, which was someone said that James Tavernier is going to be player manager of Rangers, which if James Tavernier takes over, I just genuinely won't watch them anymore. Juicy Bear Gaming says Kelechi was a free agent. There will be a lot of pressure on Schmidt to perform at 10 million. Agreed. What do you think of the questions given to Martin at the press presser? Stevie really went for him and showed his passion. I agree, Thierry. I agree. Now, as I've just said, I've got to say, well done to David Edgar. and to Stevie Clifford for really going after the manager. And I thought the way that Russell Martin responded, in particular to Stevie Clifford, was exceptionally arrogant, was rude, and was out of order. You only see the outcomes, you don't see them in training. Well, Russell, it doesn't matter what you do in training. It really doesn't matter how you perform in training. It's what you do on a match day that counts. And that's what he's failing to get his head round. And the other aspect that he's got to kind of see is that when he's training two teams against each other that are playing to his way of playing, his tactics, his shapes, his way of doing things. And there's not going to be, with the best will in the world, in training, you are not going to see the same level of speed, aggression that you see on a match day. It just doesn't happen, because Rangers players are not going to go out 100%, 110 miles an hour into each other in training for fear of injuring each other, because it just doesn't happen in training. That's not how the way football teams train. And it's true. And yes, Dem, I think what Stevie said is they don't look coached. They genuinely don't. And Russell Martin, I think, was that's what made him cross. But, he comes out with the same crap. And one thing I want to share with you, Stephen McGrath says if it's Tav, give him a chance like everyone else is. Mate, I fucking hate Tav. Stephen McGrath, I absolutely fucking hate Tav. The man is a massive part of what is wrong at this football club. Tav should have been got rid of 2 seasons ago. He is 3 seasons past his sell-by date now. The man is a joke. He's a serial loser. He is part of the problem. Trust me on that one. Clement should have been kept over this car crash, says Dem. I agree. Clement is a better manager than Russell Martin. And it was interesting what was said the other day by Hamza Igerman, that he praised Clement for the work that he did with him. He praised Clement for the support he'd got, and Clement also came out and said that Hamza was never an issue, that Hamza was never a problem, that Hamza was very coachable, that Hamza did as he was told, that Hamza was genuinely a good guy. Now, if Clement had no issues with Hamza and Clement could manage Hamza, then why is it suddenly there was an issue with Hamza when Russell Martin came in? Well, you've got to say that when you're hearing now that Raskan, again, was never an issue under Clement. Yes, he had a few issues with McCann and Ferguson, but they got over those issues and they got the best out of him. He's now an issue. He's now a problem. He now can't play. Well, what does that tell you about the problem? Who's the problem? Is it the players or is it the manager? For me, it's the manager that's the problem, because if the players are the problem, then every manager is going to have the same issue with those players, with Hamza, with Raskan, with whoever. Yeah, it's Martin that's having the problem. Now, to me, and one thing that I was always told was this: if you are constantly having problems with people, it's not them that's the problem, it's you that's the problem. And to me, it is Russell Martin who is the problem. He is the problem. His man management is not good enough. He's alienating players, he's pushing players out. Hamza and Raskin were or are, in the case of Raskin, 2 of our best players. Yet he didn't want to play Hamza, he doesn't want to play Raskin. And we need them. We needed them, or we needed and we need them. And I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand it. Let's have a quick look at some of your comments, guys. Something we always like to do on this channel, obviously, is get your view. We like to turn this into more of a conversation. Let's have a little look. What planet are some fans on, says Dem. Clement should have been cut there. Alan says, I've been told there's a planned walkout or 90-minute protest outside the stadium next Ibrox game. Well, let's hope it goes ahead, Alan. Maybe, as I've said, the only way to show the owners that we're not happy is by boycotting. Don't buy merchandise. Don't buy European packages. Don't buy tickets for the Hibs game. Don't turn up. Hit them where it hurts. Hit them. Clifford saying they don't look coached. I agree. Well done, Stevie. Stevie, brilliant, mate. Well done. Look, I've had issues with you in the past, but look, spot on, Stevie. Well done, mate. Fabulous. A shame we never got Derek McInnes, especially when he was a free agent. Did well on the budget at Aberdeen, and to think this number 2 is gone. Yeah, I agree. Look, people have slagged Derek McInnes off as a possible manager for Rangers, but I tell you something. If Derek McInnes is our manager, we don't concede goals like we conceded over the last few games. We don't look disorganised. We don't look like a team that doesn't know how to play, doesn't know where to run, doesn't know how to organise itself if Derek McInnes is our manager. it just doesn't happen. Alexander Cameron says it shows how bad the board were, that they never went to Rangers at the time when rejected Rangers. He was at Aberdeen. There was something in that, though, wasn't there, that apparently Walter Smith told him not to go to Rangers. Walter Smith told him that this was not the right time to go and to stay away from Rangers. Now, apparently that was what was said, that that Derek McInnes was told by Sir Walter not to come to Rangers, and this would be a bad move for him in his career. So I think fans that slag McInnes off for turning him down turning down Rangers, need to perhaps look at the evidence that it was Walter Smith that was telling him, don't go there. Something bad's going to happen. Just don't go there. Interesting. Dem says McGregor, Tierney, Forrest all get Celtic. Who do we have? I agree on that one. Good point, Wes. That's another thing. I think you look at the lack of leadership in this squad. There is a massive lack of leadership in this squad. Where are the leaders? Where you look at what Russell Martin describes as our senior leadership group. Now, I want to say, first of all, Jack Butland, huge respect to Jack Butland. Jack Butland saved the penalty. He plays well. Jack Butland's turned his form around. I love Jack Butland. The guy's quality. And I think there's a lot of people in our fan base that owe Jack Butland a massive apology. Huge apology. And respect to Jack Butland. After the game on Saturday, who was the Rangers player that stood, listened, talked, apologised to the fans? Who was the Rangers player who went round as many fans as he could and spoke to as many fans as he could, spoke to them, listened to their issues, talked about things with them? Wasn't James Tavernier, wasn't any of the expensive new signings, it was Jack Butland. So respect Jack for that. And I agree. Jack Butland, obviously, I'll give him that. John Souttar is not a leader. He's not a leader. He just isn't a leader, guys. He's a good right side centre-back. He's a solid right side centre-back, but he's not a leader. Kieran Dowler's a joke. James Tavernier is one of the worst captains in this club's history and shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Shame. There is no leadership within this group. And you're right, Dem. You look at them, there's leadership all over that park. And that's what gets them through those tight games. That's what gets them through those difficult moments, is McGregor stepping up, Tierney stepping up, James Forrest stepping up. People who get what it is to be a Celtic player or to represent Celtic. We haven't got anyone like that. Our captain doesn't step up. Our captain hides. Our captain goes missing. Our captain is one of the worst players on the pitch. I've seen him rated at 1 out of 10 for the Hearts performance. He was to blame for the first goal, for example. His positioning is awful. He jogs back. He doesn't bust a gut to get back. That man is a fucking disgrace. The common denominator is Martin, says Blue Nose Bob. Dem, that's why when Gerrard came, he brought back Davis, McGregor to bring that identity into the playing squad. And I think that's something Steven Gerrard would do. He'd bring an identity back. He'd bring a character back. And I think Stephen Davis, I would honestly, whoever comes in as the manager, when hopefully Russell Martin is sacked, I am slightly concerned that he'll be here longer term. Stephen Davis is part of that coaching setup, because that is a guy who gets Rangers. That is a guy who is Rangers to the core. Thierry says, it's like a boxer punching a heavy bag. In training, they will look good because the heavy bag doesn't hit back. Training means fuck all. It's Saturday. Brilliant point. Dem says, Alexander, we need players like Curtis. Absolutely. Finlay Curtis, top player. Top player. Rob McDonald says, Asgard spoke as well. Yeah, well done to Asgard. Respect to Jack, 100%. Would only keep Sal Bibbo, says Dem. Not buying merchandise won't put a dent in the billionaires' wallets. They get millions each month on interest alone from the banking their money. Imagine Dio under Walter wouldn't play. I don't think. Dio goes missing way too many times in games. Jamie Bonner says, RM coming yesterday saying the players have anxiety and mindset issues. He was the one said personality wanted to look them all in the eyes first and foremost. Mentality prepared to pay for our club. Exactly. Where's that? Where is that? There is zero pride in the badge with this lot, says Alan Abbott. Good point. We've lost the winning mentality and fight to the end. Daniel agreed. Mark Williamson, morning Mark, says Raskin should be the captain, the only one that's opened his mouth and stood up for himself. I agree on that one. Got feeling Euro packages will decide Russell Martin's future, says Dem. Hopefully, like I said, don't buy them. If you're a Rangers season ticket holder, guys, and you're listening to this, don't buy those Euro packages. Don't buy tickets for Saturday. Don't buy merchandise. Show the owners you are not prepared to stand for this vegan idiot being manager of our club any way, form. I've always said never trust a vegan. Fantastic Mr. Fox. New owners should have went out and bought Abdallah Seema, Cheney, players that know Scottish football. Yet we spent 10 million on Youssef Chimiti. Absolutely crazy. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Are you Ali McCoist in disguise? That's exactly what he said this morning. Raskan should be captain for Rangers, says David Greer. Agreed. Found this on the BBC Rangers page. Rangers chairman Andrew Kavanagh contacted Russell Martin for crisis talks on Sunday afternoon and was given the foot. Yeah, I despair at that, mate. I despair at that, Peter. I despair at that. 100%. Russell Martin and the board should be sacked. Raskan should be made captain. If they can't stand the pressure, they shouldn't be there. I agree, Stephen Moorhead, 100%. Right, guys, I just want to bring up a little bit of a comment. Now, look, I mean, some of you might have seen this on the video the other day, but Russell Martin has cited anxiety. He cited mindset. He cited mental fragility as an issue. And he's constantly cited this as the reason why what he's seeing in training on a daily basis isn't what he's seeing on the park on a Saturday. And as we've all kind of said, doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Blue Bells of Blue says, heard Stewart actually wants to move on from Martin, but when the owners were over, Thelwell advised sacking Martin would result in his personal resignation. That Martin must have 6 months at least. That's a disgrace, Blue Bells of Blue, if that's true. If that's true, sack him, get rid of Thelwell. I want rid of Thelwell. Thelwell is awful. He is a joke. Mine did it have to watch his interview. He's the cause of it. Yeah, absolutely. He's used anxiety at every club in his managerial career. Stephen Armstrong, spot on. So this is what he said. As Rangers manager, Russell Martin has said, Russell Martin has attributed some of his team's poor performance to anxiety and tension on the pitch and atmosphere at Ibrox, stating it impacts the players' execution and leads to poor decision making. So according to him, it's anxiety and the fans' fault that we're not making progress. Okay. Russell Martin mentioned the anxiety shit at previous clubs too. I get anxiety watching this team, says Dem. Agree. Lachlan Dolatovsky says beyond repair, and the Raskan situation is mind-boggling. Arguably our best player unplayed. I agree, Lachlan. It is an absolute disgrace that the best player. I mean, that picture there tells 1,000 words. It really does. I mean, that should never ever happen. It should never ever happen. That is the situation. 100% should never have happened. I'm not talking about the Mikey Moore picture. Right, let's go back in his career. So let's go back to Southampton, where he was last, okay? Where he got them promoted, fair play, well done. He then got them relegated. Okay, I know he wasn't there at the end when they went down, but he was reasonably the reason they got relegated because of the poor start. You know, you don't recover. In the EPL, if you make a bad start to the season, you don't recover. Fact. So, at Southampton, he said this. He spoke of too much anxiety with the Southampton team, a recurring issue that he attributed to the lack of mental fortitude when leading games or being under pressure. Does that ring any bells with anybody? That at Southampton, he said that the players were too anxious, that there was no mental toughness there when they were under pressure from the fans or leading games. Does that ring any bells with anybody? Does it? Okay, let's just go back, shall we? Let's go back to Swansea now, where he was manager at Swansea. Now, remember, he was a manager at Swansea. Swansea, he said this, Swansea City must overcome their anxiety to improve their form. There's a theme. There's a little bit of a recurring theme coming here, isn't there, guys? Interesting. Okay, let's go back to MK Dons where he started. Surely it's different at MK Dons. Surely when MK Dons went from being a playoff team to finishing 10th and then finishing in the lower half under Russell Martin, that wasn't down to anxiety. It was down to bad luck or poor play or the players not being that good, wasn't it? Surely. Let's have a look, shall we? Russell Martin has identified and sought to address issues of anxiety within his MK Dons players, which is attributed to a lack of confidence and uncertainty when leading the game or under pressure. So tell me this. He has been a manager of 4 football clubs. 4. Count them. 4 football clubs. Yet every time he has been a manager of a football club, and that football club has started to fail, as Southampton did in the Premier League, as Swansea did in the Championship, as MK Dons did in League One. They've gone backwards. They failed. They've failed to play well. They failed to win games. His excuse has always been they're anxious when they're trying to defend leads or they're under pressure from the fans. And he says the same at Rangers. Same old bullshit, different club. I don't get how he can honestly sit there and think that no one is going to find this evidence from the past, that no one is going to go out there and say, well, Russell, you said that at Southampton, you said that at MK Dons, you said that at Swansea, and you're now saying it again. Mate, that ain't the problem. You're the problem. You're the issue. At all these football clubs, you are the issue. You are the failure at this football club. Not anxiety. It's the fact that those teams that when they go out there can't defend. You look at his defensive record at MK Dons, Swansea, Southampton and Rangers. They cannot defend to save their lives. He concedes so many goals because he can't defend. He doesn't know how to set a team up to defend. That's issue one. Issue two, you look at those teams. They all have, as we did on Saturday, a majority of possession, but do nothing with it. They have no clue what to do with it. Russell Martin's Swansea City were a pretty passing team with no impact, with no cutting edge. MK Dons were a pretty passing team with no cutting edge. Russell Martin's Southampton were a pretty passing team with no cutting edge. Russell Martin's Rangers team are a passing team with no cutting edge. There's a familiar pattern here, and it's not anxiety. It's not the players. You can't tell me that all those hundreds of players from MK Dons to Swansea, to Southampton, to Rangers are the issue. It's Russell Martin that's the issue. It's the fact that he cannot coach a football team, that he cannot get them to play decisive, aggressive, quick, attacking football. And it's disturbing. And for him to sit there and constantly cite anxiety as the issue, constantly say it's anxiety, it's being anxious, it's the players being too worried, you know. To me, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Alexander Cameron says anxiety is an excuse. He was at fault for all of it. Dem makes a good point. Mulligan, Shanklin, Penrice, Miller, Bowie, baffling. Yeah, all of those players, Scottish, would have provided a good Scottish core. And as I've said to you on past videos, you look at when Rangers were successful under Walter Smith, we had a good Scottish core to our teams. He can take his veganism out of this club, sack Thelwell and get Davy Weir. That's a great move. Davy Weir obviously has just left Brighton. That would be a brilliant move. And if you look at what Davy Weir was part of, I'm not saying he was responsible for it because I think Sam Jewell was the biggest responsible person for this. But if you look at what Davy Weir was part of at Brighton, bringing in Caicedo, Mitoma, Baleba, Sanchez, players that were all McAllister, players that were all sold on for multi-millions, but when they were at Brighton made a huge impact, or are still at Brighton and making an impact. Great job, great job. Bad fans, how dare you? Exactly. That's the thing. It's always the fans' fault, isn't it? Blue nose. Martin Starr would compound anxiety. If you are fearful of pulling a Rascan and not playing to his rigid philosophy, how can it not? Zero freedom of expression must be hard. Exactly. That's another thing that must create anxiety. If I screw this up, if I mess this up, if I take this chance and I don't get it right, if I try something here and it goes wrong, what's he going to do to me? That's going to cause anxiety. I know. I used to work for a company, and I used to work for a store manager who was a fucking foul cow. She was horrible, and you were always anxious at work because you were always worried about if you did something wrong, what would happen to you. You know, and I'm not talking about a major mistake, because if you make a major mistake, yeah, you deserve to get in problems for it. But if you make a minor mistake or do things the way that she doesn't want it done, you get your ass kicked. How did Russell Martin get his coaching badges? Don't know, must have got them with a pack of shreddies. Fantastic Mr. Fox says, anxiety for fuck's sake. You have anxiety, you should never play for our club. You imagine Walter Smith hearing that you have anxiety, he would have ripped right through you. Exactly. 100%. Do you honestly think that Graham Souness or Walter Smith would ever dare say, oh, the players are too anxious, they're too nervous? I mean, it's a joke. JN says, RM is a master bullshitter, worse than Beale. I mean, we call Beale a used car salesman. This guy makes Beale look like an amateur. I mean, Russell Martin must have had a part of GVE London for them to go under. You know, he must be part of that as well. Do you think good job to get now as a new manager? You can't do any worse. Good time to come in. It's a difficult one. I say that it's actually a good time to become Rangers manager because you're working with a decent squad. The squad we've got isn't that bad. It is not that bad. It genuinely isn't. You know, it genuinely isn't that bad. It's a squad I think under any other manager or any half decent manager who can organise a team and can actually do it. could actually win the league. Right, I'm going to start another quick poll. We've got a decisive yes on Patrick Stewart getting the sack. Do you think Thelwell should be sacked? Question. There we go. Guys, question in the live chat. Do you think that Thelwell should be sacked as manager? Let me know in the live chat what you think of that one. Aldo says mid-September, season over. Usually we bottled it by January. However, this one takes the biscuit. At least all the Rangers fans finally agree that Russell Martin needs to go. Lachlan says, you're 100% correct. That is why I listen to your videos first. Like I've said before, you get it right to the main points. Thank you, Lachlan. I do try. I will always speak my mind. Never, ever water it down. That's why I'm not interested in getting press access. I'm not interested in doing the right thing. I'm interested in speaking for the fans and letting you speak as well. James Stalker says, same shit, different club. Martin is a fucking nightmare waiting to happen. Agreed, buddy. It's in his record. It's in his record. Hey, Owen, bud, the board of showing us they have no ambition. I agree. JN says, this is a major black mark against the new board. It's shocking that he was appointed in the first place given his shit CV. Mate, exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. There's no CVs in football. It doesn't matter what people say. The only way the board will act is when the seats are empty. I agree. Lachlan Dolotowski says, my mates from Swansea who spoke to me on him before coming Rangers asking me if it was a joke due to Rangers obviously being in a situation where they were clearly struggling. Yeah, I agree. It would seem like a joke. You ask Swansea fans, Southampton fans, MK Dons fans about Russell Martin. Honestly, you ask them. I'm starting to think the new owner's plan is to get us relegated just to say that we can win the league the following season. Mate. Mark Williamson says, think Martin sounds more like a doctor than a football manager trying to get everyone on antidepressants. He will need police protection for his own safety if we get beat by Hibs at the weekend. I agree. Kind of like his manager record, a reoccurring style. Alan says, maybe he should have been a psychologist as he ain't no manager. Agreed. Who would people want as manager? Rob McDonald says. We'll run a poll on that, Rob, in a minute, okay? Bringing Everton CEOs gives you Everton-type results. Who would have known, says Alexander Cameron. I mean, look, let's deal with that for a minute. You look at Kevin Thelwell, was Everton CEO, right? He was Everton, not CEO, he was Everton sporting director, okay? And he was obviously part of appointing Sean Dyche. He was a part of appointing, the managers that they had in that point in time, right? Okay, he's a narcissist. Oh, Russell Martin, although I agree, he is. Let's have a little look, shall we? If you look at who were Everton managers under Kevin Thelwell, right? We'll have a little look, okay? When he was Everton managers, he was, let's have a little look. Kevin Thelwell. So Kevin Thelwell was Everton sporting director, okay? He was appointed in 2022. So from 2022 to 2025, he was part of their sport. He was the sporting director, the guy responsible for signing all those players, for appointing the managers, for everything from 2022 onwards. Okay, let's have a little look, shall we? If you look at Everton, in terms of how they've got on since 2022, okay, in terms of how they've done since 2022 as a club, okay, so as a football club, they have been since 2022. So we'll take it as 20 from the 22-23 season, okay. They have got around about 36, 40, 48 points. They have always been in the bottom half of the league since Kevin Thelwell was the sporting director at Everton, okay? So from 2022 to 2023, played 38, won 8, drew 12, lost 18, minus 23, 36 points, knocked out in round 3 of both cup competitions. 2023-24, 40 points, 2024-25, 48 points, okay, and it only came right near the end of the season when David Moyes came back as manager. So under the leadership of Kevin Thelwell, they've had Frank Lampard, they've had Sean Dyche, they've had David Moyes as their managers. Okay, Frank Lampard was a disaster as Everton manager. Sean Dyche was a disaster as Everton manager. Now you look at Everton now. The first actions of Brian Friedkin, one of the first actions was Brian Friedkin was to get rid of Purdy and to get rid of Thelwell and to bring in a new recruitment staff. Right, if Kevin Thelwell was so outstanding at his job, he was such an amazing sporting director who brought in such amazing players, okay? Dem says Everton were financially restricted and had point ducks. Okay, fair enough. But if he did such an amazing job, okay, if he was so good at his job, Dem, why was Brian Friedkin so determined to get rid of him? Why was he so determined to get him out and to bring in someone new for recruitment? Okay, I don't understand that, okay? I don't get it, okay? Forget the restrictions. Forget those restrictions, okay, for a minute. Forget what happened. Just, think of it that way, okay? Friedkin comes in, he brings back David Moyes, he gets rid of Thelwell, he gets a new sporting director, they start signing good players like Dewsbury Hall, like Grealish on loan. Grealish is not a permanent transfer, he's a loan. So they turn it round. Kevin Thelwell paid 15 million for Yusuf Chamiti, a player who never played I think 23 games for Everton, did nothing. I don't get it, how this man, Derek McInnes, love him or hate him, at least he knows how to put a winning team together, says fantastic Mr. Fox. Celtic were lucky yesterday, they're absolutely pish and yet will win the league because of our downfall again, says Aldo. I agree. Ancelotti was manager at Everton when Thelwell was at the club, fair enough. Okay, I think he wasn't. I don't know, when was Ancelotti at the club? Let's have a little look. I love Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti for me is the best manager there is around. Really is top manager. Top manager. When was he at Everton from? No, he wasn't. Thelwell was appointed 2022. Ancelotti left Everton in 2021, so he wasn't there at the time. David Chartison says, final straws all over the place. Surely he's got to go now. Dyche is a decent manager. Got Burnley Europe. Kept Burnley up with 1.5 million, I believe, in 18-19. Says Dem, before we signed Clement, there was talk of Rino Gattuso as manager. He's now Italian national team manager. Stephen, I don't think he'd even be interested in stepping down from the Italy national job. John Hanna says, we have it in our own hands to bring about his sacking. Just stop buying merchandise and going to the games. Martin won't be there long if this is done. We Are the People says, I wouldn't write off Hearts win the league. Mate, I said that at the start of the podcast. As loopy as it might sound, with Celtic being as bad as they are and us being as shit as we are, I wouldn't write Hearts off either. Maybe Tony Bloom is right. Tony Bloom came out and said, didn't he, that he's here to break the Rangers' Celtic dominance. Hey, maybe it happens. Blue Nose Bob says, I don't understand how the board can dismiss 95% of the fans. They'll wait until it's too late and hand that mob another title. I agree. Bluebell says, I'll be doing a full show on Thelwell tomorrow and deep dive his credentials. For me, this is where the most significant issue is, more so than Martin. Bluebells are blue. You'll be doing a full show. What podcast are you on, Bluebells? Let me know. What podcast are you on, mate? Let me know. Hearts lack the depth to win the league, says Juicy Bear Game. They spent a lot of money. Ratcliffe changed staff when he came in. FSG did the same. Yeah, FSG did change. FSG at Liverpool changed and brought Michael Edwards, who's probably the best chief executive CEO in the business, and Richard Hughes, who is one of the best sporting directors in the business, and they're doing a great job at Liverpool. What think Hearts' first goal with handball? Call soft penalty, yet Celtic penalty was definitely soft. I don't think it's even worth getting into that. Even if that goal's disallowed, we still go on to lose that game. The last goal Chamiti scored was over 2 years ago. That's damning. Thelwell brought in Rafa, that was always going to go against them with him being a Liverpool manager. True. One example of why it's unforgivable for Martin is him continuing to play Diamonde. He does not try, does not care, does not focus, does no good. An abomination of a player, says Alex Campbell. I think on the Dio, Alex, on the Dio situation, I would keep Dio for European games, because in Europe he actually looks all right. In Europe he actually looks quite decent. It's domestically that he's poor. It's domestically that he really struggles. So, you know, he just doesn't, he can't cope with the physicality, the intensity of Scottish football. And we all know that Scottish football is so unlike any other form of football in the world. You know, it is massively physical, it's massively intense. But, you know, at the end of the day, I just think he can't cope with it. Lachlan says, talking of Ancelotti, why didn't we go chase his son Davide down to bring him to Rangers, but we got Russell Fartin instead? I agree. I would have rather had Davide Ancelotti. At least it would have been exciting and interesting. And I think he probably would have got a decent style of football. Do you think Thelwell should be sacked? Poll currently says 93% say yes, 7% say no. John Hanna says Martin will stay as long as possible, as no other club would be stupid enough to touch him with his CV after Rangers. I agree. Look, Russell Martin ain't going to walk away from Rangers. Not when he's on a big salary. I mean, you wouldn't, would you? Even if you're doing a really shit job, if you're getting paid really well, you ain't walking away. Alexander Cameron says in Europe and against Celtic, Dio does fine. I agree, yeah, he does. That's what I said. Keep him for those games, but don't play him against the likes of Livy, St Johnstone, etc., etc. RRM says Diamonde gets time on the ball in Europe and is more suited to that type of game. Exactly. Bold and Blue, 1872, mate. Thanks. No worries, Bluebells. Bluebells, drop me an email. Drop me an email. Come on the pod. Come on the pod, buddy. Drop me an email. Let me give you an email address to email Bluebells. Drop me an email at this email address. Okay, let me just drop me a little email. grn1872 at gmail.com. This is the channel's new email address, by the way. The other one was I don't know what happened to it, but Google in its infinite wisdom decided to shut it down. grn1872 at email drop me an email, buddy. Drop me an email. Stephen Robinson would do a good job. I agree. Mate, Stuart Kettlewell. Thank you, Alex, for the £5 donation. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much for that. Thelwell and Stuart already wanted RM before the decision. It's on these three. I agree, PJ. 100%. Stephen Robinson. Stephen Robinson, I think, would be a good manager. I think Stuart Kettlewell would do a good job. I think Davy Martindale would do a better job than Russell Martin. I think this bunch of flowers would do a better job than Russell Martin. I really do. They're not my flowers, by the way. They're my girlfriend's. The next Rangers manager must be someone who has managed in Scotland. We have tried these outside managers and it has not worked, apart from Gerrard being the exception, but that did take 3 years. If Martin quits, he voids his contract. If he gets fired, he still gets paid. That's the thing. That's why people don't resign, because they want their payoff. They want their big money payoff. You know, I always remember there was an English manager called Peter Reid. I don't think any of you remember Peter Reid at the football. He used to play for Everton. And he was manager of Sunderland, then he was manager of Coventry City, then he was manager of Leeds, or Leeds then Coventry, I forget. And he was sacked by all three. And the joke was, at one point, he was being paid off by all three clubs, even though he was out of work. He was being paid something ridiculous, like £6-7 million a year, by all these clubs, rather than pay him off. I mean, it's mental, isn't it? Mental. Okay. So who would you want? We're going to run a poll. Who would you want as next Rangers manager? Right. This is the question. I had mine period small. He was a very small, hard man. He swore a lot. I mean, don't you remember that Premier Passions program? What a program. Okay, these are just possibilities. Okay, so I'm going to put some options in the live chat. And one of the options I'm going to put is other. Please comment. Okay. Right. So here's the poll. The poll is up and running now. There we go. Who would you want as next Rangers manager? Gerrard, Muscat, McInnes. Other, please comment. Okay, so if there's somebody else that's not on that list who you'd like, comment. Dem says, due diligence did Patrick Stewart and Kevin do deemed a lengthy process? None. He was Sunderland manager. Peter, he's got a monkey's heed. That was the Newcastle chant, wasn't it? That was funny, mate. All of Gerrard's work is now down the toilet. All that identity. How on earth do we get that back? Says Alexander. Yeah, Gerrard. At least Gerrard gave us an identity. That's the other one. That's the other one. Parag, Kev and Patrick handled the process capably. Rosa. So Dem says Rosa, Nuno or Ruel as managers. Okay, fair enough. Trying Scotsman says Everton legend Peter Reid. Never heard of him. Lachlan Dawatowski says get me on. I've plenty to say. Probs get you banned. Lol. Jackson, drop me some emails, guys. Drop me some emails. Jose or Nunes. On Nuno, I think that means PJ. Seems to be popular options. Okay, we'll have a look. Like I said, we'll get through these options here. At the moment, Gerrard's on 41, Muscat 31, McInnes 16, other is on 12. Obviously, please comment your options if you don't like Mikel Arteta, Stephen McGrath. No way over my dead body do I want Mikel Arteta at our football club. Mikel Arteta is the Spanish Tony Pulis. Klopp on Mourinho. And we are the people. I would love Jurgen Klopp, but he did say he'd never manage again. Stevie G knows the game. I mean, that's one positive. People talked about wanting someone who understands the Scottish game. At least Stevie G does that. He understands the Scottish game. He's managed here before. John Hannah says we could do a lot worse than getting a top female coach we already have with the Mummins team. I mean, you never know. Could happen in the future. David Berman, new name, welcome David, says football like that Martin has us playing anti-football, sideways and backwards, passing, poor in defence and hardly creating any scoring chances. And scoring chances are limited to long shots. Good point. Yeah, it is. It is non-penetrative, non-aggressive football. It really is poor. Hey, wee man, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, long time no here. Alexander Cameron says Jose will go to West Ham. We'll go to West Ham. We'll get Nuno. I would take Nuno Espirito Santo as manager. I think he'd be a good manager for Rangers. I do. Deb says Rule done well at a crap show at Sheffield Wednesday. He did. If you look at how bad Sheffield Wednesday are doing now, yeah, absolutely. Dyche, interesting. PJ says 49ers want Europe money will have to be proven in some sort. Mate, if Russell Martin stays, they ain't getting any money. They ain't getting any Europe money next season. Tell you that for free. Anyone we get is a gamble. Even Gerrard, there's no guarantee of success. RM, there's no guarantee of success on any signing, mate. Even if Rangers sign Cristiano Ronaldo tomorrow or Messi, there's still no guarantee that they would be successful in Scotland. There just isn't. Any signing is a risk of any manager or player. You're right on that one, buddy. Joe Potter, 78% win percentage. Get Joe in. I did joke last season that Joe Potter wouldn't be any worse than Philippe Clement. Out of your options, I like Kevin Muscat. Steve, if you don't like any of the other options, give me a comment. Let me know. Over and above anyone else you've just commented. I think you did comment someone else, which I've forgotten about. Trying Scotsman says, the Eric Ten Hag, he gets sacked easily, so win-win. Yeah, Eric Ten Hag got sacked after 2 games at Bayer Leverkusen. That was pretty poor. To get sacked after 2 games takes some doing, doesn't it? Mikel Arteta, you said. Yeah. To be honest, Ryan will be on a good wage. Why would he? How long was his deal? I don't know how long his deal was. Bluebell says, honestly, as long as we don't go with another ideologue and get someone who's proven to be successful at being pragmatic, they'll do fine. If I hear philosophy from a new manager once, alarm bells. Sometimes, I think in Scotland, that's what you need. This pragmatism, this theology, this idealism works in England. It does. It works in England. The Guardiolas, the Slots, the Artetas, the Enzo Marescas. It works, doesn't it? It doesn't work in Scotland. It just doesn't, in my opinion. Jordan Brown says the Bodo Glimt manager. Talking about Kjetil de Knutsen. I don't think he would. I think he's a good manager. Don't get me wrong. He's got Bodo Glimt to massively overperform in a number of competitions, hasn't he? I mean, he got them. I think was it the quarterfinals or the semi-finals of the Europa League last season. Whether or not he'd come or not, I don't know. That's a good question. Good question. James Stalker says Gerrard with Steve Davis as assistant. That would be a dream team for me. I think Steve, as I said earlier in the pod, I think Steve Davis as an assistant manager is an absolute must. I do. I think he at least brings in that knowledge of Rangers. He at least brings in the fact that he gets what it is to be a Rangers man. He understands the club, and I think he could put that into the players. So for me, that's absolutely the case. I really don't want a foreign manager. They're technically better, but like many players, they underestimate the Scottish football. Yeah, I think this is the issue, and I've just said, RM, that I think managing in Scotland is so unlike managing anywhere else. It is kind of unique, isn't it? And you could go and get Arne Slot, you could go and get Mikel Arteta, you could go and get Enzo Maresca, and I think they would find Scottish football difficult because it's not like any other football. Really isn't. Blue Nose John, welcome. Blue Nose says just win. That's all that matters. Yeah, absolutely. Just get a winner. That's all we want. Someone to win. Billy Reid, Rangers man, says trying Scotsman. We might get spanked by Hibs, then RM will have to be sacked. Dreading it, says PJ. Union 1872 says Nuno. I mean, Nuno is a very popular option. I mean, I do like Nuno Espirito Santo. I think he's a good manager. I think he was unfairly sacked by Nottingham Forest. I think the writing was on the wall at Nottingham Forest, where in that Leicester game at the end of the season when they drew, and he was had the situation where Marinakis came on the pitch and started shouting at him, and he kind of tried to calm his owner down a little bit. I do think that there was a little element that was the end for him, and that was always going to be the end for him. And I think Marinakis was looking to get rid of him. I know West Ham are looking at Nuno if they sack Graham Potter. I mean, you look at his career as manager, He was manager at Rio Ave, then he was Valencia, Porto, Wolves, Spurs, Al Ittihad, and he was now obviously been at Forest. I mean, if you look at his managerial statistics and his career, I mean, it's not bad. 40% win percentage at Rio Ave, 51% at Valencia, 55% at Porto, 47% at Wolves. And to be fair, Wolves have struggled massively and have been in relegation dogfights since he left. Spurs, I think he was very unfairly treated at Spurs. And Spurs are, if you think Rangers are a crazy club, go and read a bit about Spurs. I mean, that club is just basket case. 64% at Al Ittihad. 38% at Nottingham Forest. Okay, he did fall off at the end at Forest, but I think he did a decent job at Forest. As manager, he is a decent manager. He won the EFL Championship with Wolves in 2017-2018. He won the Saudi Pro League and the Saudi Super Cup. He's got La Liga Manager of the Year award, Manager of the Month awards. He certainly is no mug. He is a decent manager. Pep would struggle to break it. Yeah, exactly. He does in England sometimes, mate. What the chances we lose to Hibs, Genk and Livy and he's still in a job? Mate, I think there's a very good chance given what we're hearing coming out of the club. If the board have any ambition, they should sound out the likes of Nuno and Mourinho. I also think Rangers lack physicality and height in many areas of the team, which is important for the SPL. The physicality point I definitely take on board, mate. I think that's a big, big thing in Scottish football. You do have to. And if you look at the great teams under Walter Smith and under Graham Souness, one thing we always had was the ability to fight and kick and battle and scrap. So yeah. Noah, we will wait until the good managers are taken. Then sack Russell Martin. Good point, Dem. Every chance that happens. Alexander Cameron says physicality is needed badly to win a run of games. Absolutely. That's what you need. I mean, that's one of the things I think you underestimate in Scotland. You can play the nicest football possible, but actually, when it comes to playing St Mirren and Motherwell and Falkirk and Livy, it isn't about playing pretty football. It's about out-fighting them, out-battling them, out-kicking them. That's what it's about, to beat them. You can play the nicest football in the world, but, if you can't win the physical battle against St Mirren or Motherwell, you don't win the game. Simple as. Blue Nose says, they brought back Brenda. We should bring back Stevie G when his tax issue with coming back to the UK is over at the year end. Good point. I wouldn't have him at Rangers, but Martindale does a great job running a club with a vinegar and brown paper. He does. Davy Martindale does a great job at Livy. Union says, Thelwell and Stewart equally as culpable as a shower of shites. I agree, 100% on that one. I think that's a good point there from you on that one. Who would you want as next Rangers manager? 48% saying Gerrard, 25% Muscat, 16% McInnes, and 11% commenting other. I do believe that obviously that man is up there. Rule would make sense given his past with Red Bull. Rule is a good manager. Danny Rule is a good manager. You've only got to look at how he's done, at Sheffield Wednesday. The fact that obviously Sheffield Wednesday have been a disaster. I'm just going to run a really quick short poll. Okay, quick short poll just to finish the podcast off. If it came down to a choice between these two, I'm not saying it will do, but if it did come down to a choice between these two, who would you take as manager? Gerrard or Nuno? Quick poll. Sky Sports won't be happy if Rangers finish bottom six. No all-firm game at the end of the season. Good point. That's the only reason they cover Scottish football, isn't it? For the thing. PJ, we could have no Europe next season at this rate. PJ, if we don't sort this out, absolutely. And then the 49ers have always said that it's all about money. It's all about European money, getting into the Champions League. They'd look a bit foolish then, wouldn't they, if that was the case? 100% look if that was the case. More votes than likes. Hit the button. Thank you. Yes, please obviously like the video. Like, share and subscribe, guys. Obviously help the channel to grow. If you've not yet subscribed, please subscribe. No, not Nuno Capuccio. Nuno Espirito Santo, mate. Every game should be a battle fever, not only against the other mob. I agree, Mark. Rule is very adaptable. I agree. I like Rule. I do like Danny Rule. Like I said, he did a good job with a bad team. Gerrard's a rat. He abandoned us. Gerrard left to go to Villa for more money. I think that's what we've got to kind of say. At this rate, we may need a second coming, aka Gerrard. Blue Nose says we're relegation fodder if we continue with him. I agree, Blue Nose. We are. It ain't going to get any better. There's no sign of it getting any better. Lachlan says, yes, in my opinion, the St Mirren game, we struggled massively due to the big physical team that St Mirren have. Bullied us on and off the pitch. I agree. We may need Big Sam soon. Oh my God. Or to get us out of relegation trouble. God help us if that's the case. God help us if that is the case, guys. Interesting, the poll at the moment running. 57% Gerrard, 43% Nuno. Gerrard coming in would be like Chris Eubank senior moment. Lol. Funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like Gerrard back. At least he would actually bring in a bit of a style. He'd get the team running. He'd get the team working. He would actually get the team looking like they knew what they were doing. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with Russell Martin to me, is they don't know what they are doing. JD says, I would give Russell time. JD, mate, seriously, are you having a laugh? Are you drunk or high this morning? Russell Martin is never going to turn it round. Look at his football CV, mate. Look at the stats on the screen. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. The arrogant vegan wanker will never turn it round. Guarantee. Guys, thank you for watching this morning. That is it. Thank you once again for everything. Ewan Minton says, whoever it is, I hope they don't continue to chase our best players out the door. Ewan, that's the key thing. As I said at the start of the pod, Hamza chased out the door. Never an issue under Clement. Never an issue under Barry Ferguson. Rascan getting chased out the door. Bluebell says, Gerrard also left because the club were not investing in the team. Yes, you could say he was the first to recognise we had major issues with the board that would... Yeah, I agree. I agree. At the time, I thought the same about Gerrard, but on reflection, he wasn't going to be backed by the board and had taken Rangers as far as he could with them. Yeah, I agree. He was massively let down by Douglas Park. Hugely. Hugely. Blue Nose, I think we all are, mate. We all are. The player, yeah, but JD, who's responsible for the players trying, mate? It ain't. It's mine. He is the issue, mate. He is the issue. I'm sorry, but anyone who wants Russell Martin to stay as Rangers manager clearly wants us to get relegated at the end of the season. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you again for all your support. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the super chat, guys. Let's hope something changes and changes soon. Personally, if I was the Rangers owner, I would sack Patrick Stewart, I would sack Kevin Thelwell, and I would sack Russell Martin tomorrow. The players, mate, you can't sack the players. JD, the players are not the issue. That squad under Gerrard or under Nuno wins the league. Guarantee you, mate. Guarantee you. Russell Martin is the problem. The vegan wanker has to go. Thanks, guys. I will catch you on the next one. All the best, guys.